crashed into the Pentagon building, causing death and destruction. Hijacked airliners. Who hijacked airliners in the U.S. on September 11th, 2001. One of the hijacked planes crashed into the Pentagon building, causing death and destruction. Okay.
The headquarters of the U.S. military is a large five-side building, which is known as the Pentagon, located in Washington, D.C. It was one of the targets of the terrorists who hijacked airliners in the U.S. on September 11, 2001. One of the hijacked planes crashed into the Pentagon building, causing death and destruction.
Very good. Hijacked airliners, hijacked planes, causing death and destruction. The headquarters of the U.S. military. Okay.
The headquarters of United States military is a large five-side building which known as the Pentagon, located in Washington, D.C. One of the targets of terrorists who hijacked airlines in the United States on September 11, 2001. One of the hijacked plane crashed into the Pentagon building, crashing state of destruction,
causing death and destruction. The headquarters of the U.S. military is a large five-sided building, which is known as the Pentagon. Located in Washington, D.C., it was one of the targets of the terrorists who hijacked airliners in the U.S. on September 11, 2001. One of the hijacked planes crashed into the Pentagon building, causing death and destruction. Okay, go ahead.
The headquarters of the U.S. military is a large five-sided building which is known as the Pentagon location in Washington, D.C. It was one of the targets of the terrorists who hijacked airliners in the U.S. on September 11, 2001. One of the hijacked planes crashed in the Pentagon building, causing death and destruction.
Death and destruction, right. Very good. The headquarters of the U.S. military is a large five-sided building which is known as the Pentagon. Period. Stop. Located in Washington, D.C., it was one of the targets of the terrorists who hijacked airliners in the U.S. on September 11, 2001. Okay.
The headquarters of the U.S. military are a language five-sided building, which is known as the Pentagon. Located in Washington, D.C. It was one of the targets of the terrorists who Jack
hijacked
hijacked I left the US on September
11th
11 2001 of the campaign into the pagan bullying อะไร causing death andอะไร
destruction.
destruction
Right, very good. Causing death and destruction. September 11, 2001. One of the hijacked planes crashed into the Pentagon building, causing death and destruction. Okay.
He excited. The headquarters of the U.S. military is a large five-side building, which is known as the Pentagon, located in Washington, D.C. It was one of the targets of the terrorists who hijacked airliners in the U.S. on September 11, 2001. One of the hijacked planes crashed into the Pentagon building, causing death and destruction.
Right, very good. Causing death and destruction. Very good. So the headquarters is the central office, the main center of the U.S. military. All the leading forces of the military are located at the headquarters. The main office of a company, or in this case, the military, its headquarters. This is where the center point of the business or the military office is located, the headquarters of the U.S. military, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, all the headquarters of the U.S. military entirety is a large five-sided building. And of course, with a five-sided building, it became known as the Pentagon, a five-sided building. Located in Washington, D.C., it was one of the targets. The hijackers on September 11th had targets, places that they were aiming for. Of the 4 targets, they hit 3. One of them was the Pentagon. The terrorists who seized the airplanes, hijacked the airliners and flew it on September 11th, 2001. One of the planes crashed into the Pentagon. That was one of the targets. It hit the Pentagon and many people were killed, and a great deal of destruction was caused to the building when they hit it. You may remember the other targets were in New York,
Yeah, remember.
the World Trade Center, and both of those were hit. The Pentagon in D.C. was hit. Does anybody know what happened to the 4th plane? The 4th plane. World Trade Center 1, Tower 1, World Trade Center Tower 2, Pentagon, Washington, D.C., target number 3. There was a 4th plane that was hijacked. But what happened was, it never made it to the target. The plane was hijacked in the Boston area and was flying to the West Coast. When it was hijacked over Pennsylvania and turned back to come either to the White House in Washington, D.C., or the United States Capitol building. But en route to the target, the passengers on the plane rose up and attacked the hijackers. And the plane, in the struggle, the fight, the plane crashed into the ground, killing everybody on the plane. So the 4th target, either the White House or the Capitol, was not hit because the passengers came up against the hijackers. And the plane crashed into a field in Pennsylvania. But the hijackers hit the Pentagon and the World Trade Center, the two buildings in New York City.
What country? Hijack what country?
Saudi Arabia. Where are they from? From what country? Saudi Arabia.
Sundown light teacher Sundown
ไม่ใช่ซัดดาวซัดดาวจะมีผู้ชายชื่อซาอุดี
It wasn't Iraq or Iran. It was Saudi. They were Saudis, the ones that hijacked. There's a long history about all this. It just didn't happen overnight. There was a lot of training that they took. In the United States, they were trained in the U.S. on the idea that there were going to be pilots in Saudi Arabia, not attack the United States, but they did. There are many books written about this whole situation, 9/11, which is referred to strictly anymore just as 9/11. So you say that you're walking around and talking to people in the United States, say, oh, remember 9/11? That's all you have to say. Everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. The hijackings that occurred. Several thousand people were killed, buildings destroyed. It was a disaster. But there's many books and stories about this. Any questions? Any questions about it? Yeah.
Please, actually, who fly the plane crash into Twin Tower World Trade Center, hijack or pilots after check from black box?
I'm sorry.
Actually, who fly the plane crash into Twin Tower World Trade Center, hijack or pilots after check from black box? After check.
Who flew the plane?
Who fly the plane crash into World Trade Center?
The hijackers.
Hijack.
Yeah, they took over. The flights left from Boston, flying to the West Coast. That was the original plan. The original flight was to fly from the east to the west. And one of the reasons they picked those planes is because they had a lot of gas. They had enough to fly all the way across the country. It wasn't a case of just a couple hundred miles. So they had plenty of gas. So they hijacked the planes en route when the planes were flying their destination. Somewhere after maybe a half an hour or 45 minutes in the air, the hijackers took over the plane. And 2 of them flew right into New York's World Trade Center, piloted by the hijackers. who took over the flight and crashed them both into the World Trade Center buildings. The third plane took off from an airport near Washington, D.C., and that was hijacked almost immediately after takeoff and crashed into the Pentagon. The fourth plane took off from Boston area in Massachusetts, and that was hijacked over the state of Pennsylvania after maybe an hour in the air, and directed, it was starting to turn back toward Washington, D.C., where it was either going to hit the White House, the home of the president, or the state capitol building, the home of the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. Either one, they're not sure which one he was aiming for, because the passengers, some of them heard on their radio or on their phones that there was the hijackings were taking place. And they realized, whoa, we've been hijacked too. So that triggered off the response to take the plane back. But in the struggle, the plane crashed.
Now do you know who is a terrorist?
Well, they know who the terrorists were that hijacked the planes, yeah. But at the time, they didn't know that they were terrorists. They took over they boarded the planes just as regular passengers. They came on the plane. There was things that you look at after the hijacking. They all sat in first class. So they're all right up next to the cockpit. They're not way in the back of the plane. They were all up front. They were all sitting together. So there were things like that. But when they boarded the plane, they were just passengers going to California until they activated their plan, which was to hijack the planes, which they did. And they succeeded. 3 out of 4 crashed into the targets. So that was the way it all happened. Any other questions about this? Pronunciation? The plane, or the airliner, hijacked airliners. The planes. Yeah, the airliners or the planes were the ones that were hijacked.
Airline is the company, right? But
No.
airliner is the plane.
Airliner is the term used to refer to the plane. It's an airliner.
But an
It's not the company. It would like a United Airlines or American Airlines. That would be the company. But in this case, it's just an airliner, a plane. Target, the thing that you're aiming for. When you're firing the rifle at the target, boom, to hit the target. The thing you're aiming to strike is the target. Terrorists, causing terror, fear in people, causing terror. Hijack, to seize the plane.
Why five-sided? Why have a ED? Five-sided? It should be 5 sides. And yes, but why they?
Really?
5 ชั้นนะจ๊ะมากกว่า
Oh, really? 5-sided.
หมายถึงว่าที่เรียนเหมือนกับว่า
อธิบายนะอธิบาย
เป็นแถวนี้
5-sided is the correct term.
Not S. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, it depends on how you use it. The building has how many sides? It has 5 sides.
That is Bulo, not S.
5 sides. The building has 5 sides. It's known as a pentagon, a 5-sided building. It's just the way it is.
ทำไมไม่เป็น S วะ
You could call it a 5-sided.
มันเป็นตึก
You could call it you could call it a 5-sided
อ๋อไม่
building.
ใช่5
And everybody say, where did
ตึ
she
กนึง
learn?
เนี่ยมันมี5 ด้าน
A 5-sided building. No.
อยากก่อนนะ
5-sided.
ไม่ใช่แปลว่า
have the
ไม่ใช่5
5 corner,
คลาสใหญ่
5 corner.
5 ด้าน
Yeah.
This building have 5 corner,
5 sides.
5 side the mean 5 corner.
ลักษณะของตึก
Like
Yeah, yeah, there would be 5 corners. You know, like 4 sides, but
มีทั้งหมด
when you go down, you know, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4,
ไม่รู้เลย
5.
เราอาจจะทำไม่เป็น
5-sided.
5 side บ้านนี้จะเรียกว่า5 ด้าน
Any other questions about that?
สรุปแล้วก็หาคนร้ายไม่ได้ใช่ไหม
hijack teacher H I G A yes
Hijack,
hijack
hijack,
what is it
hijack,
hijack
จีบปล้นบน
แป
เค
ล
รื่อง
ว่า
บิน
การบนเครื่องบิน
To hijack, you could hijack a truck, you could hijack a car, you could hijack an airplane. In this case, they hijacked
โจรการร้ายโจร
airplanes. And it's to seize it against the will of the driver or the pilot. To take over control of something illegally. It's not like the pilot had a heart attack and you stepped in and started flying the plane. No, it's you came in, pushed the pilot out of the way and took over and said, I'm flying the plane and I'm going the other way. Whoa, the plane was hijacked. Or the truck, the truck going cross country was suddenly hijacked and stolen. Taken over by somebody else, illegally. And in this case, there were 4 airliners all hijacked at approximately the same time. It was all well orchestrated by the terrorists. Hijacked. Any other questions?
The person who hijack is called hijacker.
Way to go. Very good. The hijackers. Right. The hijackers. The person who hijacks the plane is the hijacker. Hijacker. Hijack. Any other questions? Any other questions about words or meaning? Pronunciation? Destruction? Causing? Crash? Targets? Pentagon? Headquarters? Okay.
เปิดเยอะมากเลยตอนเรียนในหนังสือพิมพ์เปิดทุกตัวเลยคือพิมพ์เยอะมากเลยต้องไปนั่งเรียนอะไรเรียนหนังสือพิมพ์อ่ะก็จะอ่านหนังสือพิมพ์นะต้องไปเรียนหนังสือพิมพ์นะรับรองเก่งแต่ต้องเปิดทุกตัว
Yeah, that was one of the big days in American history, and every year they have a memorial service, which they just had on September 11th of this year. for the victims of the crashes. And it's the type of day that for most Americans who were alive then, they remember exactly where they were and what they were doing when the word first came. Oh, turn on the TV quick. You won't believe what's going on. Did you hear what happened? What? Who? What? Oh. Then most people would recall exactly where they were, what they were doing when something like that happened. It was a big deal. Okay.
Gracias.